Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Martin, and this is section 6 of 910 by Nora Raleigh Baskin. As always, we have our setting at the top of the page. We are still on September 10th. It is now 11:16 a.m. in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, which means we are in the world of Will Rittenhouse. So let's take a look at how Will's doing at school. Are you going to eat those? Ben righted his chair on its four legs and leaned in toward Will's French fries. When Will didn't answer, Ben helped himself, nabbing a handful of fries from Will's tray. The very familiarity of his bad manners was a relief, because for a long time after the accident had happened, even Will's best friends had acted differently around him. They wouldn't grab food off his plate. They didn't tease him, punch him in the arm, or give him dead legs in the dugout, like he was too fragile, as if he would break, like he was different somehow. And he supposed that was true. After so many weeks and months, most people had stopped telling him how sorry they were to hear about his dad, stopped looking at him like he had a toad on his head or something equally as unfortunate. And that was a relief too, because it was as if he had been hearing through their apologies and condolences and cards and flowers and food and tears something else they weren't saying. He should have just kept driving past, or just called it in on his CB. Don't all truckers have CBs? It didn't have to happen, did it? Only, as the world outside his home began to forget, it brought a new sense of loneliness. It created a gap between them and us, before and after. The haves, a dad, and the have-nots, a dad. So now, in the beginning of this, we see he's in the cafeteria, but his thoughts are still very much with what he was thinking earlier this morning about his dad and the accident. Now, here, Will tells us that people were thinking this. But do you believe that's true? Do you believe people were criticizing the way his dad died? No, absolutely not. People felt legitimately sorry that this had happened to his family. This is Will's thoughts about his dad's death. He thought that his father had made a mistake and should have kept driving or called in on the CB. He thought this didn't have to happen. So again, we get that resurgence of Will's anger towards his loss, even though it's a year out. That's the sad thing about grieving, is that it never really goes away. When you lose someone you love, you spend years missing them. There are plenty of times when you can move on and function and have a normal, happy life, but there are times when it comes back to you and you wonder how you would feel if that person were here with you, or what would be different, or how things should be happening. And that's very much where Will is right now. He's still very much in the grieving process. So this is why, even though he's in school, he is preoccupied by these thoughts. And there's a sense of loneliness that he talks about, because he feels like people who haven't gone through what he's gone through simply can't understand where he is. "Where's the ketchup?" Ben asked. Alex tossed an unopened packet of Heinz across the table. "What are you looking at, Will?" he asked. When he heard his name, Will whipped back around. "Nothing." It wasn't until he saw Ben and Alex staring at him oddly that Will realized he had been searching the cafeteria for Claire. She hadn't been on the bus this morning. Was she absent? Maybe she was sick? Or, Will guessed, she could have gotten a ride to school. Maybe Claire wasn't on the bus because she had ridden her bike to school. It had been drizzling, but it was warm and not too wet. Perfect for bike riding. Will could have ridden to school. He should have. He had been thinking of doing that himself lately. It had nothing to do with Claire, of course. He just thought he might want to ride his bike one of these days before it got too cold, before winter swooped in and hung around till March or April. "Will, pay attention," Alex demanded. "I'm talking here." "What?" Will refocused his attention back to the table. "I was saying I have the new Madden," Alex went on. "You guys want to come over after school?" "Cool," then said, I'll bring a controller. They both waited for Will's approval. Nah, I don't feel like it, Will said. Since when had he stopped wanting to play video games? You guys can, though, Will added. Since when? Since he didn't feel like doing much of anything anymore. Well, no, we can do something else if you want, Alex said quickly. A year ago, they would have just played Madden with or without him. Ben had been waiting for months for this game to come out. Alex had pre-ordered it. No, his friends hadn't forgotten, not completely. Not at all. Someone must have talked to them about the right way to behave when somebody's father died. Was killed. Whatever. Yeah, we can play Madden any time, Alex added. But nobody got it right. Because there was no right. What do you feel like doing, Will? Ben asked. Will looked up and across the room. What did he feel like doing? He felt like sitting next to his dad in his old truck on the way to the dump on Sunday morning. He felt like getting up early and watching his dad try to make breakfast, crack the eggs, and drip them all over the counter. He felt like throwing a ball in the backyard back and forth, until the rhythm of the ball hitting the leather and swooshing as it returned was all he could hear and all he could feel, until he and his dad were like one single unit. But that's not the way things were. I don't know, Will shrugged. So this goes to show you that even though somebody may look okay on the outside, they can be suffering on the inside. And what I love about Will's friends is they know him well enough to adjust. They know him well enough to kind of course correct. They had wanted to do one thing. He said no. Instead of being like, forget you. Go home. Nobody cares. We're going to go do this. They really just zeroed it out and said, no, we're okay. We can play video games anytime. What do you want to do? Okay. And that's what good friends do. Good friends make adjustments. Good friends put the other person's feelings first, especially when their friend is having some struggles. And ultimately, good friends can read their friend, because at no point does Will say to these guys, hey, I miss my dad. That never comes up in the conversation. But they can tell, based on the fact that he's just not really that enthusiastic about anything right now, that there's something not terrific going on. I don't know, Will shrugged. Across the way, a loud shriek of girly voices flew up into the room. So Claire was in school. She was there, sitting with her friends. Their faces lit up with laughter at something one of them had just said. The girls kept their seats close together, their heads almost touching as they giggled and talked. There were only 27 kids in the whole 7th grade, and Will had been in class with Claire in 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. They had ridden the same bus to school together every single year for 8 years. But this year, she looked different. She looked like a whole other person than the one he remembered. She looked, well, like a girl. So this gives us some information about Claire. We've heard him mention Claire. At the airport scene, he said that Claire looked like Amy, right? Amy, he ran into the airport and said that Claire wore her hair the way this girl did. Then we see him mention Claire at home when he's about to leave for school, because it kind of motivates him to go out to the bus. Didn't really feel like going to school, but Claire might be on that bus. And now here we get the idea. Okay. So he had been in class with Claire, and these are things you can add to his part of the character chart, because we don't have a separate section for Will's friends. So we'll add Claire under his part of the chart. They had been to school together every single year for 8 years. But this year, she looked different. He notices, and he's interested. When she had heard he was going to Florida with his family, Claire had plopped down on the bus seat next to him. She said she had gone to Disney World before, and she let him in on what the best rides were at what time and which ones to avoid altogether. She told him to bring sunscreen and lots of water so he didn't have to buy it when he got to the Magic Kingdom, because everything is so crazy expensive once you get into the park. And Will didn't hear a word she said, because he noticed her hair and her smile and the faint smell of maple syrup when she was this close. For a short time in 4th grade, Will and Claire had actually been boyfriend and girlfriend. The whole thing was arranged by their friends by delivering a note and returning it to their side with the answer. Will agreed to be Claire's boyfriend, but by the end of the day, she broke up with him via another note, which read, I don't want to be your girlfriend anymore. I'm sorry because you are a nice boy. That would have been it from the, would have been from the before. But he was in the after, and this was the now. So again, we're seeing he's measuring everything in before and after his father's passing. Will shifted his reverie away from the table of girls. I feel like riding my bike, he blurted out. Alex and Ben were silent for a beat. Then Ben said, okay, fine, great. Good by me. Yeah, we haven't done that in a long time. If Alex was disappointed, which he probably was, he was good at hiding it. It'll be fun, he said. What'll be fun? None of them had noticed that Claire was walking by with her tray, but they all looked up at the sound of her voice. She stood by their table and waited for their answer. Somewhere between 4th grade and this year, Claire had gotten really pretty. Ben and Alex answered at the same time. Ben said nothing, and Alex sang biking, and it came out sounding like new biking. Then Alex punched his knuckles into Ben's upper arm. Ow, what's that for? So what is it? Claire asked again, as if she kindly hadn't noticed any of their fumbling and nervousness. What's so fun that you haven't done in a long time? Ben punched Alex back. Bike riding. Will spoke up. We're just going to bike over to the old strip cuts after school. And then Will surprised everyone, himself most of all, when he added, so you want to come with us? So this goes to show you that even though Will is still very much grieving and he still feels that loss and he still misses his dad, there is part of him that will never let go of things like these memories of throwing a ball, of dad making breakfast, of sitting next to his dad in his truck. But there's also part of Will that wants to move forward in his life, that wants to embrace what's different and new. And in this case, that's Claire. So he's looking forward to maybe growing up a little bit and maybe seeing if he can have a relationship with this girl. And so he invites her to go out with his friends. So seems like an interesting situation unfolding here in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Of course, our next section will not be Shanksville. No, because we jump around from character to character. Next time we read, we're back in LA with Amy. So we'll see you for section 7. Bye.